We've all heard the story of the fall of man, but what if it's more than just a story about a bad choice? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating model that suggests the fall was a complete rewiring of who we are on the inside. We're talking about a framework of human nature in three parts: spirit, soul, and body, to really get to the heart of what was lost and how. So, here's our roadmap. First up, we'll look at the original design for humanity, how things were supposed to be. Then, we'll get into that pivotal choice, that moment that changed everything. We'll dissect the temptation itself, understand the huge reversal it caused, and finally, take a look at what life is like in the aftermath. All right, so to really grasp what went wrong, we've got to first paint a picture of the original blueprint. We need to see what a perfectly ordered human being looked like, where every part of us was in its proper place. Okay, and this is absolutely crucial. Right from the get-go, humanity wasn't created to be a bunch of robots. This idea of a sovereign will, a perfect freedom to choose, that was a foundational, non-negotiable part of the whole design. And this brings us to a really cool analogy for how that was supposed to work. Think of it like a household. The spirit, which is connected to God, was the mistress. It was in charge, giving the commands. The soul, that's our mind, our will, our emotions, was the steward, perfectly managing everything. And the body? The body was the servant, carrying out the tasks, a perfect top-down chain of command. So you have this perfect hierarchy, this perfect system, but it was about to face a massive test. A fundamental choice symbolized by two trees, representing two completely different ways of life: dependence or independence. And here are the two paths, laid out clear as day. On one hand, you have the tree of life. This path was all about dependence on God, and it led to a rich, spiritual life. On the other hand, you've got the tree of knowledge. This one offered independence, and it led to what this framework calls a soulish life, a life where our own mind, our own soul, takes the driver's seat. It's easy to see God's warning as just some arbitrary rule. But according to this view, it was actually a protection. The idea was that eating from that tree of knowledge would essentially supercharge the soul. It would inflate our intellect and emotions so much that they would totally overwhelm and silence the spirit, making it dead to God's voice. So how did this perfect order just collapse? Well, it wasn't random. The temptation was a very clear step-by-step strategy. Let's break it down. The attack was incredibly strategic, working from the outside in. Step 1, appeal to the body's desires, the physical hunger. Step 2, entice the soul with promises of beauty and wisdom. And the final target, the ultimate prize: seize the will and push for that choice of rebellion. And you can see this strategy playing out perfectly in Eve's own thought process. You've got the lust of the flesh: hey, this looks good to eat. The lust of the eyes: wow, it's beautiful. And then the knockout blow, the pride of life, that deep-seated desire in the soul to be wise on your own terms. And this whole event just pulls back the curtain on two completely opposite ways of operating. God's way, according to this, is to work from the inside out. He starts in the spirit, which then illuminates the soul, which then directs the body. The temptation, though, it worked in the exact opposite direction, from the outside in, starting with the body and the soul to capture the will and shut the spirit down. The consequence of that choice was, well, it was devastating. This wasn't just a single mistake. It was a catastrophic inversion of our entire being. The whole original hierarchy got flipped completely on its head. Now, when we say spiritual death, it's really important to get what that means here. It doesn't mean the spirit just vanished. It means the connection was severed. Think of it like your phone losing its signal to the cell tower. The phone still exists, but its ability to communicate is gone. The spirit lost its sensitivity, its ability to talk with God. So the result of that spiritual death was this complete and total reversal of power. The steward, the soul, is now running the show, driven by its own intellect and emotions. And it's being heavily influenced by the passions of the servant, the body. And the rightful mistress, the spirit, It's been shoved into the basement, suppressed, silenced, and dead to God. So, where does that leave us? Well, this leads us straight into the resulting human condition, a state this particular framework calls being soulish, a state where the soul is firmly in the driver's seat. This new ruling coalition, this team up of the soul and the body, is what's often referred to as the flesh. Humanity is now basically governed by this composite. We're driven by the desires of our minds and our bodies, and the spirit is just locked out, unable to intervene. And a quote here from the Apostle Paul just hits the nail on the head. He says the natural or soulish person thinks spiritual things are just foolishness. And why is that? Well, because from the soul's point of view, relying only on its own logic, the very part of us designed to perceive spiritual reality, the spirit, is completely offline. So when you boil it all down, this soulish condition is defined by the very things that Tree of Knowledge promised: independence from God, total reliance on our own intellect, seeking knowledge on our own terms. And the great irony is that it leaves us completely unable to grasp spiritual truth. And that leaves us with a really provocative final thought. The hallmarks of this fallen, soulish state, independence, self-reliance, the pursuit of knowledge, these are the very things our modern world champions as virtues. So if we take this ancient model and apply it to our world today, what does it really mean to be living in a soulish age?